Good morning, race fans, sim fans, RC fans. Racing 393 here again today, and as you can see here, we're going to be on RaceRoom. If you're into your sim racing, you'll know that this sim's had a massive update with the forced feedback, a few other sort of tweaks here and there. But the main update is actually the forced feedback. Did I say forced feedback? Force feedback. This game's always been pretty good in my opinion. Even the old, we call it old, the original version, I quite liked it. There was a few people that I've been speaking to over the years that weren't a fan of this game, but it dates back to the original, all the touring car games Simbin from back in the day. So. And again, I quite like them. There's a few of those videos on my channel, so you can sort of search through and find some older videos. But today we're going to be... There's a couple of things I want to talk about today. So firstly, we're going to do a quick race, obviously. Secondly, I'm going to try a slightly different angle. The crux of it is, usually, well, say more than usually, often, when it comes to driving and talking in this scenario, I personally, I can't do it. I can't collaborate my coordination and what I'm talking about. I'm just, either I need to practice it or not do it at all. So I'm going to try a different angle today. Try and be a little bit more informative about what I'm doing. Camera will be running, but I may not be saying much. I'm going to try and do a voiceover afterwards. I'm also going to include some of my setup for forced feedback, settings on my wheel, and how I came to these settings. I'm also wearing my gloves, as you can see. I've been wearing these now for a week, just over, non-stop. Well, when I'm racing, very comfortable. They haven't let me down at all. So, anyway, it will be an edited version of the racing. So to start off, we're going to go around the Red Bull Ring in Austria. The reason I've chosen that track is it's actually the current back-to-back tracks in the F1 season, and they did have last weekend the Porsche GT. What is it called out there? What do they run? The Porsche GT Cup. I can't remember. I don't know if it's exactly this model, but anyway, they had the Porsches going around the A1 ring. So that's what I'm going to try and do. As you can see, the AI difficulty, I used to run adaptive, but I've got it on 97, 25 opponents, and I generally run like 2 races. So I've got a little bit of qualifying. And if you look down on the right hand side, race 1 is 15 minutes. So in real life they're under laps, I think. But I'm only going to do like an edited race of this. So you see a little bit of practice. You might see a little bit of qualification. But just to let you know, I won't be necessarily talking through it. I might say the odd thing and I'll keep that in. So this is basically demonstrating, one, this game and its update, the new force feedback sort of feeling and how I think it is, how I sort of feel how it's changed, and I'm going to also show you my settings and how I got there. So firstly, I just want to show you the new thing here that they've got in the setup process. See, they've got a field of view setting. Now this is how I've set mine. I've done mine in car as well, and I'm only running single screen. So a 35-inch single screen. The distance that I am from my screen, my eyeball, is approximately, well, it says there. I've actually put it slightly more because my screen's curved. The head height, so that will move this bit here. I'm just thinking where I would sit in a car based on this graphic. And the pitch, because if you generally, when you're looking out of a car, you're not looking straight out along the horizon. You do tend to look slightly down. I suppose it depends where you are, but if you're a particularly tall person, then you're going to be looking down. If you're a shorter person, invariably your seat will be raised and set for you. So I always find that in anything you tend to look slightly, apart from an F1 car possibly, but slightly pitched down. I'm trying to think from my stock car days and karting. Anything with a roof on, you tend to sort of look down. Not down, you know what I mean, sort of like that slight pitch. And anything open cockpit, kart, well, that's the only thing I've driven. I have driven some single-seaters, and you are more looking across rather than down. You're looking out over the cowling on like a single-seater, the screen. In a kart, you're not looking at the steering wheel. You're looking. You can just about make, if you do it properly, you can just about make out where your front tyres are. But you shouldn't really be looking that low. So we're here sat in the pits. It's quite loud. I hope you can hear me. You can see my field of view. To me that looks full size compared to my steering wheel. And I've got my track IR. There's a little bit of tear in there, as you can see. So here we are in practice on the A1 ring. So you can actually feel the force feedback loading up when you turn the wheel, like coming into a corner.
Okay, Dean, 5 minutes to go, 5 minutes left. Yellow flag, blue flag, incident clear, green flag.
My tyres are nowhere near warm yet, so you can feel the understeer, the wheel load up depending on what part of the car unloads, which is and there, for example, it is quite, in my opinion, very, very intuitive. I also got my butt kicker working as well. That working with the force feedback is very, very intuitive for the driving. So that's a bit of practice. That's just me getting used to the car, to be honest. It just take a little bit of, when you sort of change from sim to sim, to get the swing of it. So it wasn't too bad. The car does feel, once the tyres come in, you can actually you can feel the force feedback changing from the front to the rear, depending on what you're doing. So we've got 10 minutes. I'm going to put a qualifying lap in. But I'm not going to be talking through this one. I was talking a little bit in car on the practice, but during the qualification I think I'll keep silent and I'll do some voiceover after I've recorded it. So here we are, just about to start one of my qualifying laps. I wasn't sure if it was the fastest, but as you can see, the tyres were slightly warmer. The car was sort of turning in. Incidentally, I'd like to point out, it wasn't until after the game that I realised I was only running 900. Well, only the wheel setting was on 900 degrees of rotation, and I hadn't set it to automatic, which would have been 500 and something, which is what the game would set it at. So I didn't realise that at the time. But as you can see, we're on this qualifying lap. It does take a lot of concentration. It is a very quick lap, mainly right-hand bends, which I found out that on the left-hand bends the car was tending to push. It felt like it was. The brake setting that I had was perfect, in my opinion, for this track. So it's just enough pressure to insert on the pedal to get the car to sort of what you would feel it would take to stop a car or slow a car down. And it's about just being smooth throughout the whole circuit. To be honest, it's a very flowing track. It does take a bit of getting used to if like maybe watching a lot of F1 or playing F1 games. A Porsche is nowhere near as quick in the corners as a single-seater F1 car. So as you can see, we're coming down to the final corner onto the main straight where I completed my lap. I think it put me near the back as usual, to be honest, but it was what it was. Have it. That was my qualifying. That's really tricky. As you can see, I'm last, but it's so intuitive, the force feedback. You can actually know when to push the car, and if you've overdone it, it's so much better than it was. Now, when you're comparing against something like AMS2, Automobilista 2, I think, because I've played a lot of that game and only sort of recently started playing this game since the update, I've got to say, in my opinion, I think this RaceRoom force feedback is better than AMS2, and I really like AMS2. It might be that the AI is actually a lot better in RaceRoom, so it feels like you're racing a human rather than a predetermined AI. I think the AI in AMS2 can be a little bit suspect, but yeah. Anyway, qualifying. We're going to return to the garage and reset back on track. I'm not that far off the final guy there, but I wanted it. I have upped the difficulty another notch, so that could be another reason. So we're going to return to the pits, and I'll see you on the track. So here we are. Now, I made an error. I was editing away, and I deleted the beginning. Probably the most important part. Not much happened, as you can see. I carried on, but there's a spinner there. That was under lap 1, as you can see on the dash. So it was a case of just trying to get your spatial awareness, because there was the AI does act to me like it's a human being would. You know, I can implement my own skills, if you like, that I would do in real life, and apply them to the game. This is the difference between what good AI is and what bad AI is. So at the beginning of this run, you can see we're trying to, outbrake the guy there, and they're running alongside us, but they're not they're just sort of squeezing you to the right there, which is, pretty realistic, not taking you off the track, as it were. Even coming down to this right-hand bend here, we're trying to outbrake him without hitting the car in front. I think I glanced across. I'm not too sure. Is he still there? I think the spotter's still saying he is. I just got a quick glance, and then we kind of can take a bit of a tighter line to gain that position. So it's pretty good at the moment. We're coming down to towards the end of the lap. trying to keep pace with the cars in front. The force feedback, as you can see over the curbs there, it kind of shakes me around in the seat. It's not super aggressive, but to me it kind of feels how it would be if you hit a curb on a racetrack. Some cars are more sceptical than others, so we're going to start another lap here now. So we're on to lap 3, and we're sort of gaining on the cars in front. And you can see here I'm sort of deciding which way to go. I think he squeezed me out here a little bit. I stay wide, try to sort of switch back in. There's a car there. The settings on this car is factory settings, so in real life these cars do have traction control. It's not that I like running traction control, but I do try to keep things as they would be in real life. So again, we're coming down towards the end of the lap. I think I've gained another place there. So position 22 during lap 3, and we just check our mirror. So this corner here is also, it drops away from you to the right, so it's a slightly later apex. This one always catches me out. It's never quite as smooth coming onto the main straight. And we're going to go and skip a few laps here now as well. So up to lap 7. Still got the car still in 21st place. And we can kind of catch him here. We're going slightly quicker coming down to the sort of final corner. But the final corner for me, I can't get on the power. I go wide, as you can see there. I went too wide, as I sort of commentated. It's starting to push, and the tyres are actually going off ever so slightly.
Just 2 minutes left. 2 minutes.
So coming down now to sort of the final part again of the straight. Haven't really made any positions or distance in the car in front. Lap 9. Just a minute 20 and the extra lap. So I'm sort of talking there about the tyres, I think, if my memory serves me correctly. And you can see the car is running slightly wider on the corners. Wrong gear. Lack of grip. I think that's probably down to the degrees of rotation not set correctly, if I'm honest with you. I felt I was turning the wheel a lot more than I would normally. So again, we're coming down, that's lap 9, position 21. We haven't really made any gains on the car in front. Two more laps. Lap 10. So I think this is the final, or a few final laps, 1 or 2 laps from memory. I can't remember now. So that's the first corner. It's all about momentum. With this particular track, it's very, very fast. I do prefer the old A1 ring, which disappeared off into the woods, a little bit like Hockenheim. But I have to say, for a new age track, the A1 ring is one of my favourites. It's like a short track. It's like a short track oval in the circuit way. And we all know that circuit races hate the oval. Hate's a strong word. Look down on, I should say. There's been a lot of skills learnt on the ovals, I can assure you. They transfer over very, very well. Anyhow, we're coming around to sort of the final lap now. All I'm trying to do now is keep my position. I'm losing sort of time on the car in front, unfortunately, coupled with tyres that are going off, and or maybe I'm struggling with how the wheel is set. We're coming down to sort of the final 2 corners of the lap. 21st place, 11 laps in, or 12 laps in 15 minutes. And you try to get this corner, you just try to clip that little sausage curve in the middle. That's 21st placed. I think I might have said 11th. That's my mistake. Sorry about that.
21st. There we go. It's over. Bring it back round.
So there we have it. A 10-minute race. So I made up some positions. Finished 21st. lap times during the race were comparable with nearly all of them. You can see there were mainly 135, so I'm really pleased with that. And that's on 97% AI. So I'm now going to show you some of my settings for the wheel. Now I run a DD1 Fanatec direct drive. So bear with me while I get myself sorted out. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to do the second race, but I'll show you how I've set my force feedback. So I'm going to go to options first and controls and force feedback. So the good thing is I've mapped a graph. It's like the force feedback app, if you like. It runs. You can have it running while you're playing the game. So on this wheel, I have to invert the force feedback because it feels really weird. I can also increase or decrease the force feedback multiplier and have the meter showing as well. So I've got the strength on at 100. I've got linearity. What's that say? Linearity. Linear. I can't even speak. Is it linear? Linearity. I've got to learn how to speak. 100%. I've got the minimum. It's recommended on the DD wheels to have the minimum forced feedback on 0. The maximum force. I mean, it's a bit of an odd number, but that's where when I was testing it, that's where it ended up. And the stationary friction, which is why the wheel feels quite good. Like in the pits, it feels like it's got some resistance on it. You can actually add that onto there. The next ones, these would tend to be on the old force feedback. So they're like fake moves, if you like, to better feeling for your wheel, depending on what you've got. But I run all these on 0. And the graph, what I tend to do is when I'm running it in practice, I won't actually put it on, I'll tell you about it. You can adjust this line here. So, and what you should do is when you're going around corners over curbs, you don't really want the graph to spike above it. So it's generally the adjustment that I find for here. So you can have that running, which is this, and then you adjust this one here initially to get where you want it. Depends on how much force you want to come through the wheel. Mine spikes a little bit over some of the curbs, so I could adjust this. This isn't right up, but it's a bit of trial and error. So I've mapped the multiplier plus and minus onto my button box, so I adjust it. I think I'm running from memory. I'll show you. There we go. So the multiplier I'm running on this car is ×2, and that tends to work with what I've got. Now, what I'm going to do now is show you the settings I've got actually on the Fanatec wheel. I've got to learn to speak. So bear with me while I get that sorted out. So here's the force feedback settings and what I've got on my wheel. So I'm going to put the there. I've set mine, personally I've just set mine to set up. I've got 5 sort of presets, but number 5 is what I use. So sensitivity, I had mine at it was 900. Now I usually run that at automatic. I must admit, I actually forgot I set it at 900 yesterday for something else, but that seemed to work well. On my force feedback itself, 55% on the wheel. There's this one then, so linearity. I think that's how you pronounce it. So we have that off. Recommended to take that off on the wheel and use the in-game. I don't know whether that's true. I'm not sure how that would operate, so should we have that on or off? It felt alright to me. I mean, I didn't notice anything odd, but that's generally on my wheel, it's off. Natural damper, 10. Natural friction, 10. The inertia, is off. Interpolation, so that's for the force feedback signal. We have that off. The intensity, so it's like a filter. We have that 100%. I don't think it goes any higher. No, that's its maximum. The effect, 90. The spring effect, I think that's off, I don't know. Yeah, the spring effect's off on the wheel. The damper effect, and they recommend that to be off. I say that's what I read on the forum, but you know, you're welcome to try your own settings. It just depends on your own, I think, force feedback's your own individuality, really, what you feel, will you've got. You know, it doesn't have to be these ones. Brake level indicator, that's off, I haven't got rumble pedals. Shock and vibration, 100% on the wheel. Brake force, that's sort of depending on what brake pedals. I've got the Fanatec load cell. I tend to run it on Formula cars, like high, maximum, but on anything tin top, it tends to want a little bit less, so I run that at 90, as you can see. So that's it, that's the sort of the setup I have. The only thing that's sort of different there to perhaps normal is I usually run it on automatic on the degrees of rotation, but I had it on 900. I changed it yesterday on a game I was playing, and to be honest with you, I didn't notice a lot of difference. I think 900 tends to work. For me, it worked right. If I did it on automatic, maybe I think the DOR on the car is like 530 or so. I can't remember what it was now, but it was on that previous screen. But I set it to 900, and it probably could tell that maybe the car was understeering more because I was turning the wheel. So maybe I should have had that on automatic. So that was perhaps an error on my part, but it didn't really detract from the game. I'm trying to think when I played it previously. I think if it was an automatic, then clearly you had more steering input, and it does make the car a little bit more tail-endy. Where it was pushing, it seemed to be pushed, which was I did really think then it was usually pushed that much. So yeah, so even though I've done a review on this on the force feedback, there's still some. It was my fault that I set it at 900. I hadn't checked, so I'd recommend. I'm going to sort of go back on what I did before. I recommend that you perhaps put that you wheel set into auto, and it kind of matches what the game's set at. So anyhow, that's RaceRoom. That's the new forced feedback. I keep saying forced. Force. That's the new force feedback. Hope you enjoyed it, and I shall see you on the next one. Bye for now.